Okay, good morning to everybody. Today I will be discussing uh, in ethics again a very important issue, the problem of egoism and altruism. Um, in our discussion on ethics, we have been touching different aspects and different issues. Now, this problem of egoism and altruism is, I would say, one of the central, very important issues, problems to be discussed from ethical point of view. Basically, what it means is uh, issue between doer and the recipient of the result, or we say agent and the patient, person who does something and also the other side, the one who receives the result. Now, how should be the connection? What is the amount of attention we can give to ourselves, and what is the amount of attention and the consideration we can give to the other people? This idea, because in a way everything is centered around yourself. But then ethically looking, what is your situation? What is your place in this equation? So this is important ethical question from Buddhist point of view and also from general ethical point of view. So let me take you to different aspects of this issue. It is an important ethical question to determine the degree of involvement of the agent, doer, or we can say in Pali, atta, and the recipient of the result of the action, the other or para, in discussing moral actions. Now, if we are using Buddhist terminology, we can use atta, para. Atta means oneself, para means other. So, oneself and the other, atta, para. So, but in Western philosophical terms, it is same thing as egoism and altruism. Okay? Religious traditions are seen to uphold the ideal of altruism, which is to sacrifice one's interest or oneself for the sake of the other. In Buddhism, a similar development is found in Bodhisattva ideal, which is characterized by sacrifice of one's own salvation for the sake of others. In contrast to the Mahayana ideal, Theravada is perceived as advancing self-interest or one's own salvation over that of the others. Is this egoism, which is believed to be ethically narrow and limited? Okay. Egoism means the view that self-interest is the foundation of morality. Altruism is the view, the regard for the others as a principle of action. Now, this tension between egoism and altruism. Egoism, the group of people who hold this view, they think that the self-interest is the foundation of morality. Whenever you do something, it is your interest. How it affects you. So, some people say that that is the most important thing. Whenever you do something, you consider how it affects you. You remember in our yesterday's discussion on religion, we discussed Pascal Wager. Now there we looked at the concept of rational human being. Usually the concept of rational human being is defined as a person who is promoting self-interest. So it is believed that any rational person will promote his or her own interest, will not be detrimental to one's own interest. In other words, if you do something that is harmful to you, you are a fool. You are not a rational person, because you have to really look after yourself. Now this view, now this is on the other hand, religions have been saying that you have to sacrifice yourself for the sake of others. So on the one hand, we have this idea that we have to look after ourselves. On the other hand, we have the idea that we have to sacrifice our life for the sake of other people. Now, what is the situation? Where are we? What is the right view? So it has many different aspects. So egoism is the view that self-interest, your interest, your concerns, is the foundation of morality. In other words, what you judge, how you judge what is good and bad based on yourself. Basically, considering yourself. Now, if you bring in the concept of rationality, so you are a rational person. If you are a rational person, then you are promoting your own interest. Okay, that is one aspect. But on the other hand, when you look at from a religious, particularly religious point of view, religions seem to be saying something different. Okay, now if you take the Bodhisattva view, Bodhisattva is supposed to be sacrificing one's own salvation or one's own nirvana for the sake of others, right? So Bodhisattva is that. But then, how is it? Is it the right thing to do? We can always ask this question. So we can discuss a little bit more on Bodhisattva ideal shortly. And then in the Mahayana we have Bodhisattva ideal, and then Theravada we have Arahanta ideal. Now the idea is that one should really try to be an Arahant before everything else. So that means looking at your own salvation. So on the one hand, looking at the other people's salvation, or looking at your own salvation. So which one is better? So this question, egoism and then altruism, is an important question, and we will see within the Buddhist tradition itself, we have a very important debate about this historically and also philosophically. In political science, liberal individualism and socialism have this issue at the heart of their philosophies. Accordingly, liberal individualism values freedom of the individual and considers the individual interest as non-negotiable. Socialism values social justice and distribution of wealth among all it is in just manner. Now, these are the two very prominent political philosophies today. In fact, today almost all the countries seem to be liberal, individualistic, the attitude. But still we have socialist countries, and then of course some time ago in the world there were two blocks. One is the socialist bloc, and other thing is what is called capitalist bloc. Now what we call capitalist bloc actually considers this liberal individualism. So the individual as the main and the most important thing. And then we have capitalist bloc where people talk about social justice. So if you take these two views, liberal individualism, and then liberal individualism talks about, basically talks about freedom. Now this is the most important thing, freedom of the individual. And then if you take socialism, socialism talks about justice, or we can say social justice. Now, these are the movements and then their goals. So, liberal individualism talks about freedom of the individual. It says that the individual freedom is the most important thing. Now, when it comes to socialism, socialism seems to be saying that no, social justice is the most important thing. Okay? Now, this debate, if you take countries like United States and European countries, particularly the Western European countries and many other countries in the world, they following liberal individualism. So, under that philosophy, what is called market economy, like you engage in businesses and you earn money. So that is the basis of the economy, and based on that individual effort, individual entrepreneurship, the society is considered to be developing. So the idea is that individual has to have freedom to engage in activities that individual wishes to do, including business and other things. So the most important thing is the individual and his or her freedom to engage in the activities he likes. So in that sense, liberal individualism values freedom of the individual. Now, when we say individual, it is important to understand actually we are talking about any particular person. Now, not the society. Now, when we talk about the socialism, socialism talks about society as a whole. So, it talks about that which affects the society. So, it does not talk about individual. But here the important thing is they talk about the individual. Actually, there are so many the scholars who have written on this issue. One of the scholars is John Rawls. He says something very interesting. He is one of the leading scholars in this liberal individualistic philosophy. John Rawls. At some point he says, if you take the society and the individual, okay, if you put the whole society in the one side of the scale, and if you put the one individual in the other side, the scale must be equal, or scale cannot be more weighty for the society. In other words, sometimes we believe that for the sake of society, individual interest can be sacrificed. But according to John Rawls, no. Even if the entire society is on the one side, he says that individual interest has to be equally or more importantly valued. In other words, individual's interest is very important. Now, if you look at socialism, socialism would say something like, no, you have to look at the interest of the larger group of people or the society. So, according to this view, society is more important than individual. So, therefore, individual interest are kind of sacrificed for the sake of society. Now, that is why in the socialist system, sometimes you see when a person earns a lot of money, government takes that money and distribute among the other people. Now, according to liberal individualism, that is completely wrong. Because if you earn money, that is your effort, then that is your money. So, simply because the society does not have that much money, nobody has a right to take away your money and to distribute it to among other people, unless you do it. If you like, you can distribute, but nobody else can take your money and distribute in the society. But in the socialist system, sometimes it happens, right? So therefore, that's why they talk about the justice, and particularly the social justice. Within social justice, they talk about the fair distribution of the wealth. So, but liberal individualism says that no, it is your effort, your business. Everybody has right to do business. Everybody has right to do one's own things. So, you earn money and it is up to you. And others also can do the same thing. Others also can do the same thing. Now, even these liberal individualist, the thinkers, sometimes have expressed the concern about even paying tax. Now, in a lot of countries, the rich people become rich and they do business. And then what the government does is, tax those people, impose taxes on them and take money from them and use them in public welfare projects. Now, so you earn money and government takes your money by way of taxes and distribute that same money for those people who are not equally working hard like you. Now then, of course, as a person who earns money, you feel bad because you are working hard and earning money, and then government takes that money and distribute among the people who are not equally working hard. You see? So, this problem is very interesting. But at the heart of this whole thing is really, if you look at carefully, you can see that liberal individualism looks at yourself. As socialism looks at the other, like the society and the other people. So you can see that in Buddhism we have this problem as atta para. Atta means you are the person who is doing yourself, and the para means other. Now, similarly, you can see in the political philosophy, you can see liberal individualism and socialism. And then when it comes to philosophy, you see altruism and egoism. So, we could put it this way. So, in political philosophy, you have liberal individualism and socialism. And so, this is political philosophy. And then ethics, we have egoism and altruism. In Buddhism, we have atta, para. So, these are three different ways of looking at the same problem. Okay? In Buddhism, we have atta, para. Atta means oneself and para means other. So, when you are doing things, how should you do? How should you organize? To which should you give preference? To atta or to para? That question is there. And then ethics, you have the same problem, egoism and altruism. Egoism believes that yourself is the basis of ethical action. Any ethical action has to be decided based on how it affects you. And then altruism believes that no, the principle of action is concerned for others. Liberal individualism is what is called actually capitalism, which believes that people should have the freedom to do what they like. And then socialism says that no, freedom is not the most important thing, justice is the most important thing, particularly the social justice. So can you see this, the same problem, same question, the issue arising in many different areas? Okay, is that clear to you? So in all these three things, you have one central issue. The central issue is in action, in behavior. As the agent, as the doer, what is your situation? And then you do things, they affect others. So how much you should be concerned about the others in your actions. Okay. Now, of course, there is no easy or simple answer to this question. Now, in philosophy, Kantian ethical position and the utilitarianism too are basically concerned about this issue. Now, I think we had some discussion on utilitarianism. Utilitarianism determines any human action based on the utility. So basically they say maximum pleasure for maximum number of people. Okay. Now actually the utilitarian criterion is much closer to the socialism. When you say maximum happiness for maximum number of people, you are looking at the larger number of people. So if any action is good for a larger number of people, that action is considered to be good. Maybe for a small number of people, perhaps including yourself, that action may be not good. Now, even particular action is not good for you, according to utilitarianism, you have to decide for the action that is good for larger majority. Now, there you are not looking at yourself, you are looking at larger majority of the society. However, Kant talked about what he called categorical imperative. What he meant by that is, Kant said that any ethical action has to be universalized, in the sense should be justified according to a universal principle. So it is not how it affects you or how it affects anybody else, but basically it is a universal principle. So according to that also we can see that oneself is not really the criterion. You can't simply do something because it benefits you. Even if it benefits you, you have to do it under a much broader criterion. I don't want to go into the details of that, but I just want to show you, different areas in philosophy, in religion, in political science, how this question has been coming up and dealt with. Thus, the issue of egoism and altruism, or self and other, is important for both a general philosophical sense and also from a Buddhist perspective. Okay, so I think I hope now the issue we are going to discuss is clear to you. Now, it is an ethical issue. Basically, it is an important ethical issue because we do things. Ethics is about basically doing right and wrong, good and bad, so our behavior. Now, somebody is doing these things. When a person does something, how it affects that person and how it affects the society. So this is something important. So this is basically the problem of egoism and altruism. Okay, Theravada position. The relevant to the Theravada position on this issue, the following Dhammapada may be cited. Now, I quote here from Dhammapada some statements. We can just understand how the Theravada Buddhism would look at this. Atthanameva patamang patirupe niveseyi. Athanya manusaseyya na kilisseyya pandito. A wise person must establish oneself on what is good beforehand. Then he may guide others. Atthanameva patamang patirupe nivese. Athanyang anusaseyya. In fact, the translation of na kilisseyya pandito is not given. Then he may guide others. He should not really na kilisseyya pandito. If you are an intelligent person, you should not really harm yourself or defile yourself. na kilisseya pandito. So attanameva patamang. Now if you take attanameva patamang, attanangeva patamang, so atta comes first. According to this statement, attanameva patamang, patirupe nimese. And then the second statement is atta dattang parathena bahunapi nahape. Atta datta mabhinyaya sadatta pasutosiya. One should not harm one's own purpose by engaging much in helping others. Knowing one's own purpose, one must be busy with that. Now, if you take these two positions, they are very clear. They are very clear in saying that you must look at yourself first. Attanameva patamang. You must look at yourself first. It says that you must establish yourself in what is good. Atha anyang anusaseya. Atha, then only after that you must guide others, instruct others. And then the second one says, attadattang parathena. One should not harm one's own purpose by engaging much in helping others. Now, if you look at these two things, you can see that atta, your own interest comes first. Now, in Theravada Buddhism, if we have only these two stanzas, Theravada Buddhism seems to be saying that, egoism is the most important thing. You have to really look for yourself. But of course, Theravada Buddhism is not only these two statements. It has many more statements. So we have to get all these statements together to discuss this issue. So, but basically, this is very interesting. Why does Buddha say so? Why does Buddha say so? Attanameva patamang. One should look after yourself. Now, how do we understand? Now, Mahayanists say that Theravada ideal of Arahanthood is selfish. Actually, when Mahayana originated, the idea was that the Bodhisattva concept, if you take Arahant and the Bodhisattva concept, you can see that two are totally different, two have totally different the emphasis. So on the one hand here, okay, Buddha says that you must we will look at first this. Mahayana Bodhisattva ideal is considered as an example of altruism. It is believed that Bodhisattva does not attain nirvana till the last being attains it. The Bodhisattva gives up his opportunity for attaining nirvana for the sake of others. In the Buddhist history, the Mahayanis criticized the Theravada practice as motivated by selfishness and as a result low. Hence the term Hinayana and Mahayana. Actually, if you look at carefully, this debate has been very important in the Buddhist tradition. This debate has been very important. And the concept of Bodhisattva is characterized by giving up your own opportunity for nirvana, for the sake of others. You go into the samsara and then attain Buddhahood in order to guide others. Now the basis is that you give up your opportunity for nirvana. Now if you take Theravada story of Sumedha Tapasa, when the Buddha obtained the first Niyata Vivarana from Dipankara Buddha, we know this story is there because according to that story, Sumedha Tapasa was able to attain Arahanthood in that before Dipankara Buddha. But then he did not become a follower of the Buddha. He obtained Niyata Vivarana from the Buddha and started practicing to become Samma Sambuddha. Now, idea was Samma Sambuddha was you save, and you save in the sense, you guide other people. Okay? So, now this is the basic story that is found in the Theravada tradition. However, when it comes to Mahayana, we can see that this idea became this story in the Theravadis only about Sumedha Tapasa, this particular Bodhisattva. But we know that Bodhisattva concept became very popular and very wide subsequently. So ultimately, the idea developed in the Buddhist tradition that all must be Bodhisattvas. All must be Bodhisattvas and all must give up their opportunities of attaining Nirvana for the sake of others. So there you can see that altruism in a very high degree. Okay? Altruism in a very high degree, because Bodhisattva really gives up his opportunities of attaining Arahanthood and terminating the samsaric dukkha. But instead of Nirvana, Bodhisattva takes samsara. He goes into the samsara, and being in the samsara, practicing paramitas, he tries to attain Samma Sambuddha. Now, this issue is something very interesting, because if you look at carefully, now one situation is, okay, all of you become Bodhisattva. Now all of you become Bodhisattva, and then all of you give up your chances of opportunities of becoming an Arahant, and then all of you try to become Samma Sambuddha and guide others, save others. But if you look at carefully, you can see that if all become Bodhisattvas, who are there to be saved? Now, according to Mahayana ideal, if everybody becomes a Bodhisattva, then of course all the people become Bodhisattva, then I don't think there is anybody left to be saved, because all become Bodhisattvas. But if Bodhisattvas are limited, then of course we can understand some can become Bodhisattvas and others can become ordinary people, and so that Bodhisattvas can come and help them. But if you take everybody should become Bodhisattva, we can see that then there will not be anybody left to be saved. But on the other hand, Mahayana ideal is for everyone to be Bodhisattva. In other words, actually Mahayana seems to be saying that ultimate ideal for everybody is to be Bodhisattvas. Now, whether there are people left to be saved or not, when you become Bodhisattva, when you give up your opportunity for becoming an Arahant, then you have already become a great person. So the ideal is given as a universal ideal for everybody. But I think what they are trying to say is, when you become an Arahant, you are trying to save yourself. Now that is being selfish. So you have to be Bodhisattva. But this is something very interesting for us to think. As I tried to show you, in a way we can say that everybody cannot become Bodhisattvas. Because if everybody become Bodhisattvas in order to become Buddha, then there will not be anybody left to be helped by Bodhisattvas. Okay? And also another thing is, like a Bodhisattva is considered to be living in the samsara till the last person is saved. Now, what does it mean? A Bodhisattva is supposed to be living in the samsara till the last person is saved. But can there be a last person in the samsara? Think about it. Can there be a last person in the samsara? According to the Theravada or the Buddhist understanding of world, is there some kind of end to the world? Now, I have been explaining to you the Christian concept of world, starting from some point, going to some point and finish. Now there you can talk about the last person, right? So the eschatology in Christianity, the theistic religion talks about the end of the world, Some people are sent into the heaven and others are to the hell, and end of the story, close. Now in Buddhism, of course, we don't have anything like that, right? We have the world as going Sangvatta, Sangvattamana, Vivattamana, Vivatta. It is a process that goes on. So ultimately, Vivattamana gives way to the Vivatta, then the Vivatta stage is over, then Sangvattamana, and then Sangvatta. But Sangvatta is not the end. Then start again Vivatta, expanding. So in a way we can't say that there is a last person in the samsara, right? According to that. Because there is no end to samsara. Now I'm just trying to understand this. Now if you look at the Bodhisattva concept, Bodhisattva is supposed to be saving, not attaining nirvana till the last person attain nirvana. But the issue is whether there is a last person in the samsara. Now again you can see that Bodhisattva ideal, on the one hand everybody has to be Bodhisattvas. But then can we believe that everybody is waiting to be the last person to attain nirvana? Who is there to attain nirvana if all are Bodhisattvas? Anyway, these are some of the questions you can think. Now on the other hand, if you look at the Arahant concept, Arahant is concerned about one's own salvation. And then the Mahayanis say that that is being selfish. Now it is interesting thing is, who is an Arahant? Arahant is a person who doesn't have ultimately get rid of Lobha Dosa Moha. Now selfishness is basically Lobha, isn't it? Selfishness is basically Lobha. So Arahant is a person, ultimately when you become an Arahant, you don't have Lobha. You don't have Lobha towards anything. You don't have Lobha towards anybody, including yourself, right? So from that perspective, when a person becomes an Arahant, and the Arahant ideal, we can't say it is selfish. Because if you are selfish, you cannot become Arahant. How can you become Arahant if you are selfish? Now it is something, the problem here, because on the one hand, you try to attain nirvana, okay? Because your own suffering has to be ended. But can you do it in the selfish manner? If you really think that you have to liberate yourself, save yourself, and you do that out of selfish, I don't care what happens to the others. But then can you really become an Arahant like that? If you really think like that, can you become an Arahant? Actually, no, because ultimately you have to really give up the desire for yourself, desire for everything, including yourself. Now ultimately, if you think that I want to become Arahant, now I becomes a problem. You can't think that I want to become an Arahant. Because the moment there, I is there, you have desire, you have a selfishness. So you can't. So ultimately, you have to give up your idea. Now, which means that, with any kind of selfishness, you can't really become an Arahant. Now, you see the problem. On the one hand, Mahayana tradition talks about all of us have to be bodhisattvas, give up our opportunities, we have to sacrifice our life for the others. So that is a good example for, we can say, altruism. Para. You are looking at others, you are not looking at yourself. But on the other hand, Theravada seem to be saying that, no, attanameo patamang, okay? Attend to yourself first, and then you do for the others. Now, so they say that this is being selfish. Now, what do you really think actually? Is the Bodhisattva ideal is feasible? Can everybody be Bodhisattvas? On the other hand, is being an Arahant, is it a selfish ideal? Now, this debate is going on in the Buddhist tradition ever since. Now, historically, this term, Hinayana and Mahayana, these two terms started because of this. Mahayana said that to become an arahant is hina. Hinayana. Hina means low. Low vehicle. That means it is for the people who have not really high capacity. The term used is Hinadhimuttika. Now there are two terms, Hinadhimuttika, Panitadhimuttika, right? So now here the Hinayana is for those people who are considered to be Hinadhimuttika. So Hina Adhimutti. The other is Panita Adhimutti. Panita Adhimutti. Hina, the idea was that Hinayana comes from this idea, Hina Adhimuttika. These people who try to attain arahanthood have low capacity. They do not have the capacity to become bodhisattva. Panita means great. So the great capacity means, those people who have the capacity to become bodhisattva. So accordingly, those people who try to attain arahanthood were called Hinayana. Others were called Mahayana. They themselves called Maha means great. Sometimes this term is translated as small vehicle. Actually, that is not historically correct. Hina doesn't mean small, okay? Hina means low. So it is not a small vehicle, it is really the low vehicle. That is, they meant, it doesn't mean, they did not mean it is to be a small. Small is not bad, right? Small is beautiful. So small is not bad. But here we have not the small, but they considered this group to be low in capacity, Hinadhimuttika, Panitadhimuttika. So it is according to this idea that this the terms Hinayana and Mahayana came into vogue. Now the issue is, when we look at Buddhist tradition, actually how do we solve this problem? Now this Mahayana Bodhisattva practice, we can see this. So on the one hand, here we have Attanamaya Patamang. Buddha says that you tend to yourself first, Patiropi Nivese, and then Buddha says Attadattang Parattena Bahunapi Nahapai. When you are trying to do good to others, don't harm the good to you. Now actually, what does this mean? Does it mean that this is being selfish? Now if you look at carefully, you can see that the answer is also there. For example, when Dhammapada says Attanameva Patamang, actually it doesn't say that you should not help others. What it says is Attanameva Patamang, you help yourself first, and then you help others. So it doesn't say that you don't help others. What it means is you help yourself first. Attanamaya Patamam Patirupe Nivese. Now when you are traveling by air, you see that if something happens inside the plane, they say that there is a mask. They say that you wear your mask first, and then you put the mask to your child next. Okay? Although you are the mother or father, instruction is for you to wear the mask first, and then you help another person, your child, to put the mask next. So which means that it doesn't mean that of course you are not helping the child to put the mask, but the first thing first and second thing is second. So this idea why Theravada is emphasizing Attanameva Patamang, this very interesting, because it doesn't say that you should not help others. What it says is you should help yourself first. As you know, there is a philosophy for this. Now, what is meant by this is not really anything and everything. Now, this doesn't mean that you should not do, you should not help others. For example, I am hungry, also somebody else is there also hungry. I can see that other person is more hungry. So then I will give my meal to that person. So I go starving. But that's not a big deal, because by not eating one meal, I'm not going to die. Right? But so things like that are there. So two hungry people, you look at the more hungry person, right? The other person may die of hunger. Then you give your meal without eating. So you are doing something harm to yourself. But that is not such an important thing really. Okay? So you have to understand this, Buddhism is not talking about things like that here. Buddhism is talking about something much, I think, more important. When Buddha says, Attanameyo patamang patirupe nivese, you have to establish yourself in what is proper first. Athanyang anusaseya, then you instruct others. Actually, this is a more, I think I would say, deeper ethical problem is here. The ethical issue is, if you are not a good person, how can you try to make other people good? If you are not established in virtue yourself, how can you establish other people in virtue? So, here we are talking about deeper ethical issue. Okay? Not really like helping others or things like that. Those are important. Those things, of course, you can do even harming yourself, right? If you don't eat, if you don't have your meal, you are making yourself inconvenient. But that's okay, so long as the other person is more hungry, and then other person will suffer more, so you help. But when it comes here, Attanameyo patamang, this is something different, okay? This is something different because it means not simply helping others, but something deeper. Namely, particularly when you are talking about morality, unless you become moral, you can't talk about other people's morality. Unless you become moral, you can't really help other people to be moral, right? So, I mean, you are being in a morally deprived situation, how can you help others? I think in here I have in some place where Buddha talks about, let me see. Now look at this. It is not possible, Chunda, for him who is stuck in the mud to pull out another who is stuck in the mud. But Chunda, it is possible for one who is himself not stuck in the mud to pull out another who is stuck in the mud. This comes in the Salleka Sutta Majjhima Nikaya. This is the rationale. This is the reason why Buddha says Attanameyo patamang. So Buddha says it is not possible, Chunda, for him who is stuck in the mud to pull out another who is stuck in the mud. Now you are stuck in the mud. How can you pull out another person similarly stuck in the mud? Attana palipanno parang palipannam uddharissamiti netang thanang vijjati. This is what the Buddha says. Attana palipa palipanno parang palipa palipannang uddharissamiti netang thanang vijjati. It is not possible for one who is stuck in the mud. Attana palipa palipanno. Pull out, uddharissami, pull out another who is stuck in the mud. Now this is simply the argument. If you are not a morally established person, how can you guide the person to morality? You can't do that. Again, don't misunderstand. This doesn't mean that simple moral things. For example, unless you are an arahant, how can you really guide another person to be an arahant? Unless you are sotapanna, how can you guide another person to be sotapanna? Because you don't have the experience. You don't know how to do that. But if you are a sotapanna, you can guide another person to become sotapanna. If you are sakadagami, you can guide another person to become sakadagami. If you are anagami, you can guide another person. Because you know, you have done it, you have the experience. Here there is, the aspect you have to be clearly see. On the one hand, if you don't have the experience, if you don't know it, you can't do that. That is what it means. So if you are not an arahant, you can't guide anybody else. Because you don't know, you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge. That is one aspect. The other is moral. If you are not good, how can you make other person good? Because it is not really knowledge. It is more like an ethical thing. If you are not a good person, if you are not a moral person, how can you make other persons moral? So you are immoral and you can say to other people, you be moral, but others don't care. Because you really don't have moral courage and the moral ability to do that. So attanameo patamang patirupe anyway say, you yourself become good first and then you try to help others. Now this doesn't mean that you should not help others. But what it means is you can't help others unless you are a good person. That is the idea. You can't help others. Now the stories that Buddha, when the Buddha Sasana had 60 arahants, right? Panchavagya Bhikkhu and Yasugala Putta and his friends. When they all became arahant, Buddha said to them, okay, go in different directions and teach and because unless you become an arahant, the idea was that, okay. Now of course it doesn't mean that today without becoming arahant, you can't guide people. No, I mean we can guide people to some extent, but we will not be able to guide people to be an arahant. So there are two things here, okay. One thing is without the experience you can't, without the knowledge you can't guide. That's knowledge aspect. The other aspect is without being moral yourself, you don't have a moral ability to do that. It's not knowledge really. You have to be, the morally capable to do that. One time Mahatma Gandhi in India said that, be the change, you be the change, you want to be the society to change. I mean something like that. You be the change, because if you want to change the society, first you be that change. So you show that from your life, because people sometimes want the society to change, but yourself you don't change. But Gandhi said that no, you be that change which you want society to be. So when you are the change, society will see that yes, it is possible. But otherwise what happens is, we say to the society, you do this, but of course you don't do it. Okay. So when Buddha says attanameyo patamang, I can see there are two things. One thing is, without knowledge, without experience, you can't do this. Number two is, without really being moral yourself, your lesson, your teaching is not effective. Your teaching is not effective. Now Buddha could do that because Buddha had attained that. Then the Arahant can do that, Arahant attained it. But in today's society, even if we want to try to change the society, make people better, we also have to be better. Okay, we also have to be better, otherwise we can't do that. So, this argument, when the Buddha says it is not possible, Chunda, for him to stuck in the mud, to pull out another who is stuck in the mud. But Chunda, it is possible for one who himself is not stuck in the mud. You come out from the mud and then you help the other person to come out. Everybody is in the mud, then you come out and then you help others stuck in the mud to pull out. Now this comes in the Salleka Sutta. I think this is a very, very important statement by the Buddha. Okay, but then in the practice, okay, you try to become an arahant and then you forget about everything else. But that is not really the Theravada Buddhism. Because even if you want to meditate and become an arahant, how if your teacher is sick? Can you go on meditating saying that, no, I don't have time to look at help my teacher? No. If your acharya is sick, you have to look after. You can't say that you have to go and meditate. Okay? Now if you are the acharya, if your antevasika is sick, same thing. Acharya will have to stop meditating and taking care of, looking after the antevasika. So, this doesn't mean that, in the Theravada tradition, you can just be meditating in order to attain nirvana, forgetting all these things. I mean, okay, you take an example of a Buddhist monk. You have come from your home. But if your mother and father are helpless, then you have to stop meditation and go and support them. Actually, stop meditation and go and support them that is wrong, because you don't have to stop meditation, because meditation doesn't mean that sitting in one place and doing like this. Meditation can be done in many different ways. So even helping your parents, helping your teacher, helping your antevasika can be a part of your meditation if you do it in the right manner. So it doesn't mean that you have to really stop these things and go. So it depends on how you look at it. Okay? It depends on how you look at it. So there is another very interesting thing. Attanang rakkanto paran rakkati. Paran rakkanto attanang rakkati. One who protects oneself protects the other. One who protects the other protects oneself. This comes in the Sanyutta Nikaya. Now what does this mean? Attanam rakkanto paran rakkati. Paran rakkanto attanam rakkati. There is a story behind this. The story is that there are two acrobats. One is the teacher, one is the assistant. Acrobats are, like walking on the rope and, doing very dangerous thing. So one day they were performing in the city. So the teacher says to the pupil, look, this is a dangerous game. This is a dangerous thing. So in this, you protect me and I protect you. That's how we should do this. Then the student says, no. You protect yourself, I protect myself. That is how we should do this. Okay. Now, who is right there? Teacher says, you protect me, I protect you. But pupil says, no, you protect yourself, I protect myself. Who is right? Actually, according to the sutta, it is very interesting. It looks like that the student is the one who is right. The student is the one who is right, because ultimately your protection, you have to take care of it. The other person's protection, other person has to take care of. So when you protect yourself well, that is why it says, Attanang rakkanto paran rakkati. When you protect yourself, you are protecting the other also. Right? You are protecting the other also. Because, in this acrobat game, if you do something wrong, not only you, both fall down. So, you have to take very good care of yourself, which means you are protecting the other. And other also has to do the same thing. He can't make any mistake. If he make a mistake, not only him, both will be falling down. So the Buddha, this story, ultimately, it's very interesting. You read this sutta. which says that the proper way is, you protect yourself and other protect others, I mean like the other, and that way, we protect ultimately each other. Now, this again you have to understand in somewhat different sense. Like protective means, if I protect my mind, is something like that, then I can help others to do the same thing. I provide protection to the society by doing that. So, this is how it has to be understood. But anyhow, the interesting thing is, in the first place, you feel like what the teacher says is true. Teacher has to protect the pupil, pupil will have to protect. But then, what happens is you are undertaking the other person's protection. What about your own protection? So the best approach, according to the discourse, seems to be, best approach is each individual person look after one's own protection. By doing that, you are protecting the entire society. You are protecting the entire society. So it is, now look at it, how monks it is that one who protects oneself protect the other. It is by moral training, moral culture, moral development. How monks does one who protects the other protects oneself? It is by forbearance, harmlessness, by goodwill and compassion. Here you see all these ethical things. So one protect oneself by moral training, moral culture, moral development, that is you develop yourself. So by doing that, one who protects oneself protect the other. It's by these things. And how does one who protects the other protects oneself? Now when you are doing that, it is by forbearance, harmlessness, goodwill and compassion. So on the one hand, you have to be morally good person. At the same time, you have to have compassion. You have to have compassion. You have to have karuna. And then the goodwill, harmlessness, ahimsa, forbearance, khanti. So you have to have those things. Now here you see attanam rakkanto param rakkati, param rakkanto attanam rakkati is given very interesting meaning. So protecting means actually you are protecting in the moral sense, okay? But the story comes from the acrobats thing. Even in the acrobats game, each acrobat has to look after oneself properly. Then everybody, all the group will be protected. That's the idea. But then Buddha gives a much deeper meaning to this statement. So these two statements are very important in understanding this issue. We will look at this. In the Ambalattika Rahulavada Sutta, Buddha says that one should not do an action if it causes harm to oneself, harm to the other and harm to both. In this discussion, Buddha takes both oneself and other as deserving equal consideration. Is there a specific significance of referring to oneself and the other separately and then referring to both together? Does this mean that there are some ethical actions in which priority is given to oneself, some to other and some to both? What is the situation? Now if you look at Ambalattika Rahulavada Sutta, Buddha says the criterion given is if something is, you say, Buddha says, neva attabhyabadhaya, neva parabhyabadhaya. I think not, we say na attabhyabadhaya, na parabhyabadhaya, then we have na ubhyabhyabadhaya. Now this is the criterion. Atta, para, ubhaya. Ambalattika Rahulavada Sutta in the Buddha says to Rahula, do not do anything if it harms you. If something is attabhyabadhaya samvattati, if it harms you, parabhyabadhaya samvattati, if it harms the other, Then ubhayabhyabadaya sammatati if it harms both oneself and the other. Now what is the meaning of this having both at the end? Because when you say atta para, you have both there, right? But then why is ubhaya separately? That's my question here. Is there a specific significance of referring to oneself and the other separately and then referring to both together? Because if you have attabhyabadaya, then if you have parabhyabadaya, if you have atta para, you have two, right? My question is, why do you have to have ubhayabhyabadaya, both together? Because attabhyabadaya, parabhyabadaya, you have atta and para. Third category is why. Third category seems to be redundant, saying the same thing. Is that the way? How should you understand this? How should you understand this attabhyabadaya, parabhyabadaya and ubhayabhyabadaya? Why ubhay? Does it say anything new? I think you need to think about it. Because does this mean that there are some ethical actions in which priority is given to oneself? There are some ethical actions priority should be given to other, and there are some ethical actions you should give priority to both. Is it the case? How should you understand? Actually, I think in this statement there is an answer to the accusation that Arahant ideal is selfish, or Theravada Buddhist ideal is selfish. I think there is an answer here. Now ultimately here what the Buddha says, don't do anything if it harms you. Don't do anything if it harms the other. Don't do anything if it harms both. Now what happens is there can be certain things, it is harmful to you but not harmful to the other. There can be certain things, it is harmful to other but not harmful to you. But there can be certain things, it is harmful to both you and other. Now if something is harmful to both you and other, never do it, fine. But if something is harmful to you but not to other, there can be situations you should do that. As I said earlier, by not having your meal, you are putting yourself inconvenient. We can say harmful to you, but the other person is more hungry. So you don't care about yourself, you give it to other. So there, even certain things are harmful to you. If it is, harmful to other, then you should not do it. So you accept what is harmful to you, but you do what is good to the other person. And on same manner, you have certain things harmful to the other, not harmful to you. But then you should not do that, or you should do it in a reflective manner, because there can be certain situations, there is a limit you can consider about others. Ultimately you have to look at yourself. Now for example, there can be very difficult situation. Somebody is, say, drowning in the water, but if you can't swim, you are fooled to jump into the water, because then of course you will also be dying. There is no point, So something like that, there can be certain situations. But the most important thing is, last thing, ubhayabhyabadaya. Now the actual most important thing is you have to look at both oneself and the other. Now ethical action is something that concerns both oneself and the other. Then if something is good for both oneself and the other, that is the ethical action that you should do. So which means that you are taking care of both sides. Now if you go from that, ubhayabhyabadaya, so then Buddha says, neva attabhyabadaya, na parabhyabadaya, na ubhayabhyabadaya. Don't do something if it harms both you and. Now if that is the criterion, then how can you say that that is selfish? But the important thing is, it takes yourself also into consideration. Okay? Now I think Buddha tries to say something like this. Now if something is internally harmful to you, don't try to help others there. Now, for example, in the Mahayana tradition, they say that a bodhisattva can do even wrong things in order to help others. A bodhisattva can go to a group of drinking people and drink in order to help others, those drinking people. This example given. Or bodhisattva can go to a prostitute and have association with her in order to help her. But this is a little bit problematic. Now, you go to a drinking people and you start drinking in order to help the drinking people, who knows? You will become a drink addict. Then of course you are harming yourself, right? You are taking a risk. You go to a prostitute in order to help the prostitute, but in the meantime you are harming yourself. These are some of the ethical issues that we need to be carefully analyzed. Can you do something wrong in order to really, with the intention of helping others? That has to be thought carefully. In the Mahayana philosophy, it seems to be, they say that bodhisattva can do anything. Bodhisattva doesn't have a problem. But very rarely people may be able to do anything without harming yourself. But interesting thing is, according to the Buddhist philosophy, we don't have a situation where a good person can do anything bad. Actually, for a good person, it is impossible to do anything bad. Good person can't do morally bad things, even to help others. So, in that sense, you are a good person means it is incapable for you to do certain things. So, you simply can't do. So, therefore, whether actually a person can do ethically harmful things for yourself is really a question. So, anyhow, I have been trying to give you the answer to the question whether Theravada, the ethics really represent some kind of selfish attitude. I think Ambalattika Rahulawada Sutta, when the Buddha says that Atta, Para and Ubhaya, I think we can really see that ethical consideration in Theravada Buddhist tradition is something quite broad. And then now actually I talked to you about this argument. How can one eradicate attachment, anger and delusion if he or she is selfish? How is it possible that the Arahant taught the Dhamma, guided people in the path and spread the Dhamma among the people if they were selfish? Now Arahant are considered to be selfish. But once you become an Arahant, then what are you going to do? Just go home and sleep? No. If you look at the Arahants during the time of the Buddha, I mean all the Arahants, dedicated their life to teach people, help people. What did the Buddha did? Entire life, the guiding people. Of course, helping others can be different ways. The Buddhist monk or Buddhist nun can help people spiritually, not by providing material things, because monks don't have material things to provide. But helping Dhammadana as the highest dana. So you can say, so if you look at the Arahants' behavior, you can't say that they are selfish. The issue between Theravada and the so-called Hinayana sects and the Mahayana has to be explained historically and also philosophically. The two positions driven to extreme are problematic. Neither can attain the desired goal. The path has to be a middle path between egoism and altruism. Actually, this is my conclusion. My conclusion is that either Bodhisattva or Arahant ideal, if you drive this to the extreme, then it becomes problematic. If you think that I can't do anything, I have to become an arahant, then of course it becomes selfish. It's true that you want to become an arahant and you have to eradicate all the desires and everything, but then you are sacrificing from the very beginning. So when your teacher is sick, if you have to look after your teacher till he dies or till you die, then that is selflessness, right? So you don't have your desire about yourself. So by doing that very act, you are practicing the Dhamma. If the teacher has to look after the Antevasika, pupil, same thing. You can't, if you think that no, that is not good for my meditation, then you have understood meditation incorrectly. Because you have to do these things, you can't simply be doing only meditation. Then of course it becomes selfish. So that's why I say the two positions driven to extreme are problematic. Even the Bodhisattva ideal is that you think that you should help others and not look after yourself, then ultimately it will prove that you are not really a worthy person to help others, because you have to really be internally developed person to help others. Now if you are not developed person, then how can you help others? So Bodhisattva cannot forget about oneself. Bodhisattva, what I am saying is, really these two ideals have to be understood very carefully. So you can't be really a selfish thinking that I want to attain my nirvana. No, then of course you will never attain because you are selfish. Ultimately you have to give up everything. Dhammapi pahatabba. Then only you become arahant. So if you really say that I want to become an arahant, you will never become an arahant. Because you are motivated by your desire. Okay? Of course, desire can help you to become arahant. That's a different thing. Your motivation. But of course, whenever you have I in the forefront, of course, you will never become an arahant. Same thing with the bodhisattva. Like if you think that you should only help others and you should never look at your own internal development, then of course you are a fool. Finally, we have 4 types of people. Buddhism values those who are engaged in the pursuit of well-being of both oneself and others. Ultimately, out of these 4 types of people, those who are engaged in pursuit of well-being of both oneself and others, now they are the most important category according to the Buddha. Do you remember these 4 categories? Attahita, Parahita, ultimately both Attahita and Parahita. There are some people who are doing Attahita. There are some others Parahita. There are some others neither Attahita nor Parahita. And there are others both Attahita and Parahita. So actually this 4th category, both Attahita, Parahita people are the most valuable, the person according to the teaching of the Buddha. Now this shows that actually in the course of this discussion, I touched also this Hinayana Mahayana issue, because in the Buddhist tradition, this Hinayana Mahayana issue is, something very important, because there are 2 traditions. I think these 2 traditions have to be historically explained in the sense how these 2 traditions started. Maybe at some point the Arahant ideal people, those who accepted that ideal, became very narrow. They never looked at the society and what is happening to the people. So then, Mahayana gradually emerged. But then Mahayana became completely other-oriented and, losing the spiritual development. But I think ultimately both has to be there. But when the Buddha says that if you are stuck in the mud, you can never get another person who is stuck in the mud. That's a very interesting ethical and philosophical statement. Ethically, if you are a deprived person, ethically if you are not a good person, how can you make the society ethically good? And also, if you are not an experienced person, how can you teach others? So on the one hand, you have to have the experience in the path. On the other hand, you really yourself have to be a person who is walking on the path. Okay, those are the two things. Okay, let me summarize what I did. Basically, the problem is problem of egoism and altruism. Now, the issue is in the ethical action. What is the place? What is the significance you must assign to yourself? Right? Because you are the person who is doing, and then others are the people who get results affected by what you are doing. So how much consideration you should give to yourself and also the other, right? Now, if we are living all by ourselves, we don't have to really care very much about others because others are not there. But then our life is always within a society, right? Now, I mean, like for any simple things like you go to have your meal. If you are the only person having meal, then you don't have to care very much about, but if you are having a meal with a group, you have to think about other people, right? You are also hungry, others also hungry. So, how should you compromise between the two? But if you think about only your hunger, then other people will be hungry, you will be okay. But if you think other people's hunger, then you will be hungry. So then ultimately it has to be what I call the path has to be a middle path between egoism and altruism. I think that is the answer, because you can't be completely egoistic. Also you can't be completely altruistic in every form of behavior. So the position has to be like a middle path, middle position between the two. You have to balance it. But there can be certain actions, certain situations where you feel like you can sacrifice your life. You have heard sometime, the people like you produce a medicine for an illness. The doctors want to test this medicine. Sometimes people say, okay, test it on me. If the medicine goes wrong, you are going to die. But the person knows that. He thinks that that's okay. Test it on me, so that he looks at huge number of people are going to be benefited by that act. So, you don't care about your life because you think that, okay, it's only one life, but so many people will be benefited, so use my life. Okay. So, I didn't discuss with you the problem of self-sacrifice, sacrificing your life. There can be certain situations you risk your life. You're risking your life trying to help others. But then you have to really clearly think, okay, let my life go. That's fine. I don't care. If I can do something, I will do that. So, people do that. So, that's absolutely okay. But in Buddhism, when Buddha says that if you are in the mud, you can't take another person from the mud, Buddha is talking a different language. Okay? Buddha is not talking about helping people with food or helping people with when they are drowning or not like that. Buddha is talking about much deeper thing. Right? You are in the mud means you are in the mud of defilements. So you can't help anybody else. Okay, so what I tried to show you is there is an interesting ethical problem here. Ethical problem is between yourself and the other. Because everything we do affects the others. Everything we do. You cut a tree, it affects the others. Like everything. So therefore, how should we really behave when you and others are affected by your activities? Okay, I will wind up from that. Do you have any questions or comments or anything? Any questions you want to ask about?
The last one, Buddha Sharia, to be Buddha is regard to say as egoism.
What is the last one, Reverend? I did not get the concept. Can you write down that concept in the chalkboard? What is it? Which Charya is that? I can get that. Buddha Charya, you said?
Buddha Sharia. Should I, Buddha Sharia, should I say Buddha Sharia as egoism?
What is the English term? I didn't get your Pali. I'm sorry. Okay, egoism I know, but what is the Pali term you use?
Buddha Sharia means and the practicing of and the practicing to be Buddha.
Okay. So you think whether it is egoism? Okay, yeah, thank you, Reverend. I'm sorry, I couldn't get it at the very first. No, sorry for that. Now, in fact, if you look at the life of the Bodhisattva, the life of the Bodhisattva is founded on the idea of altruism. Because if you take the Sumedha Tapasa story, in the Sumedha Tapasa story, Sumedha Tapasa could attain Arahanthood and eliminate his suffering at the very first instance. Now he gave up that and then he became, he wanted to be the Buddha. So the very act is motivated by altruism. But then importantly, so the basis is altruism. However, in order to achieve that, you have to develop yourself. So developing yourself to that position is really not egoism, because you are doing it in order to help others. Now, same thing you can say you are becoming an Arahant. You can think that, I want to become an Arahant, I want to terminate my own suffering in order to help others. So when you think like that, you have altruism there. But of course, in order to be altruistic, you have to be qualified to do that, fit to do it. So for that you practice. So Reverend, I don't think it is motivated by egoism. In other words, actually what the Buddhist position says is, egoism is not that bad. Because egoism, in the sense, you have to be concerned about yourself. So sometimes scholars use the word, it is some kind of enlightened egoism. Because you have to really consider about yourself too. You have to consider about yourself for two reasons. One thing is for your own goodness. The other thing is, even to help others, you have to be a good person. So when you are trying to be a good person, is for yourself and also for the sake of others. Reverend, you can't really separate one from the other. But if you are really motivated by egoism, according to Buddhism, you can never become an Arahant. No, you can never become an Arahant, because egoism is selfish. So long as selfish, how can you get rid of your desire? So, it is technically wrong for us to say that somebody can become an Arahant and still that person is motivated by selfishness. Because selfishness means desire. So long as you have desire, you can't become an Arahant. So that's the idea. This issue is really complicated issue, so sometimes it's not very easy to separate one from the other. But the Buddhist position is taking ubhaya, both oneself and other, into consideration when you are doing something. There can be mundane things like sharing your meal with somebody, where even you could do, even you are at a disadvantage. That's fine. But when it comes to a much higher, more serious things, you have to consider yourself and other both. Okay. Anything else? Okay, in the absence of any more questions, I will stop morning discussion from this. So, okay, thank you very much.